In 1860, a man named Thomas Babington Macaulay drafted the Indian Penal Code. This was a complete legal system written by a British politician for a country he considered uncivilized. The IPC covered everything: theft, murder, fraud, sedition, even so-called offenses against morality. And here's what's wild. This law, written in 1860, ran India's entire criminal justice system for over 160 years. Section 377, which criminalized homosexuality, was a British invention from 1860. Section 124A, the sedition law used against journalists and activists, was written by the British to suppress Indian freedom fighters. They literally wrote laws to keep Indians in line, and India kept using those exact same laws on its own citizens for decades. It wasn't until July 2024 that India finally replaced the IPC with the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. 164 years. That's how long a British law controlled Indian justice. Now let's talk about the thing every Indian is proud of: Indian Railways. 68,000 kilometers of track, the fourth largest network in the world. But here's what most people don't think about. The British didn't build Indian Railways for Indians. They built it to move raw materials, cotton, coal, tea, spices, from the Indian heartland to the ports. From the ports, everything went straight to Britain. The railway routes weren't designed to connect Indian cities to each other. They were designed to connect mines and plantations to Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, the three major port cities. Indian labor built every kilometer of track. Indian taxes paid for the construction. But British companies earned guaranteed profits through a system where the Indian government had to pay them even if the railways made no money. The gauge system was also a mess. The British used different gauges across different regions, which India spent decades and billions of rupees fixing through the Unigauge project. Even today, the fundamental route map of Indian railways still follows the colonial extraction pattern. In 1835, Thomas Macaulay, the same man who wrote the IPC, presented his famous Minute on Education. His goal was simple: create a class of Indians who were Indian in blood but English in taste, opinions, and intellect. That's a direct quote. The British replaced India's existing education systems, Sanskrit pathshalas, Persian madrasas, local gurukuls, with English medium schools designed to produce clerks and administrators for the British government. The entire structure was built to serve the colonial machine, not to educate Indians. And that structure is largely still in place. Board exams, rote memorization, emphasis on English proficiency as a marker of intelligence, a system that rewards obedience over creativity. This is Macaulay's design, still running almost 200 years later. This might be the single most destructive British policy in history. In 1947, when Britain decided to leave India, they appointed a man named Cyril Radcliffe to draw the border between India and Pakistan. Radcliffe was a British lawyer. He had never visited India. He knew nothing about the geography, the culture, or the people. And he was given 5 weeks to divide an entire subcontinent. He worked from outdated census data and old maps, drawing lines through Punjab and Bengal that split villages in half, separated families, and cut communities off from their farmland, their water sources, and their relatives. The border was announced on August 17th, 2 days after independence. 14 million people were suddenly on the wrong side. What followed was the largest mass migration in human history, and between 1 and 2 million people died in the violence. And this border, drawn in 5 weeks by a man who had never set foot in India, is still the international boundary today. Every tension between India and Pakistan traces back to lines drawn on a map by someone who went home to London and never looked back. The Indian Civil Service, the ICS, was the backbone of British rule. The British called it the steel frame of India. It was a system designed to give a small number of British officers total control over millions of Indians. District collectors, magistrates, commissioners, they answered to London, not to the Indian people. When India became independent, the system was renamed the Indian Administrative Service, the IAS, but the structure barely changed. The same hierarchy, the same district-level control, the same exam-based selection, the same enormous power given to individual officers. The IAS officer today has almost the same authority a British district collector had in 1900. The bureaucratic culture, the red tape, the file pushing, the delays, this wasn't an accident. The British designed a slow, rigid system because speed wasn't the goal. Control was the goal. And that culture is still deeply embedded in Indian governance today. And finally, the land. The British created 3 major land revenue systems in India: Zamindari, Ryotwari, and Mahalwari. Under Zamindari, landlords collected taxes from farmers and gave a portion to the British. The landlords became powerful, the farmers became trapped. Under Ryotwari, farmers paid directly to the government, but the rates were so high that most farmers fell into permanent debt. These systems were designed to extract maximum revenue from Indian agriculture with zero investment back into the land. When India abolished zamindari after independence, the damage was already done. Land records were a mess. Ownership disputes that started under the British system are still being fought in Indian courts today. Small farmers are still trapped in cycles of debt that trace directly back to colonial tax policies. The British left India in 1947, but their systems didn't leave with them. The laws, the railways, the schools, the borders, the bureaucracy, the land records, all of it was designed to control and extract from India, and much of it is still doing exactly that. The question isn't whether the British affected India, it's whether India has truly moved past what they built.